Oh my God, we're on live, right? Okay, we're on live. Okay. Wait, I got to check something here. I hit the wrong button. I just came off Instagram and I hit the wrong button. So let me make sure that the sound is right. I'm doing this live on YouTube. Hey, I'm Scoot. I'm glad you're with. Yeah, sorry about that little bit of confusion. This is Scoot on the Air, YouTube. Glad you're with me. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will become one of our subscribers. And at some point in the future, there'll be benefits for subscribers. Just subscribe, and we'll let you know when we do something new. Every Monday, it's an episode of Manic Monday, and then Wednesday night and Saturday night, it's the truth behind the microphone. And I try to reveal some aspect of the media and what goes on with the media behind the microphone from my perspective. And I don't always support my industry. Sometimes I can bash the media, and understanding the media, it's easy to bash the media. Also, on Saturday night, I share a Scoot story. In fact, the last YouTube that I did, which was Saturday night, was about what I learned from the movie Godfather, especially Godfather 2. I was watching it over the weekend, and I realized that I learned a lot from that movie. I love the character study of Michael Corleone. And I actually used the image of how he handled things in my mind when I was being reamed out by a program director. Anyway, that episode is the last episode that I did, Truth Behind the Microphone Scoot Story. Don't forget the Scoot on the Air coffee mugs are in. Is there a line in there? There we go. Scoot on the Air coffee mugs are in. Also very good for tea, but I love the style of this this coffee mug. See, I'm going to look like I'm on QVC right now. It's a very nice. It's a thin-lipped cup, a nice handle. I like the way my hand fits in the handle. I like the thin rim. So it's a coffee mug that is personally my style of coffee mug or tea. Got tea in mind. And 100% of the proceeds go to charity. You can find this on my website, Scoot on the Air. And every day on my website, SOTA, there's a new thought for the day about politics and about, something. Shatney says, love my mug. Shatney, man, cheers to you, dude. Thanks for ordering the mug. And it's a little way of giving back, and you can help us. You can help us give back. Anyway, I want to talk about something that first of all, it was a manic Monday for me. It was just one of those crazy days. Usually, since I'm an independent, I'm registered independent. I'm a radical moderate. I have opinions, but I'm not always conservative. Man, I get backlash from conservatives all the time because I'm too liberal. Today, I was honestly taking a stance. It was a conservative position. And I got backlash from liberals. So it goes to show you that on my radio show, on WWL, my talk show, a lot of conservatives and a lot of liberals listen. And sometimes there's clashing. But it was just amazing. And what it really showed me was that people are just angry right now. And they're looking for somebody to lash out at. And it's as if people are just looking for somebody to blame, somebody to be mad at. And sometimes that's the talk show host. Because people can't really get to the politicians and the people that really are to blame for things. So they take it out on the local talk show host that talks about it. Hey, it's okay. It's part of my job. But what disturbs me is this growing desire to just be mad at somebody, to just bitch and complain and blame them. A perfect example of what happened today is what is happening now a lot. So I talk about Congress dealing with whether or not to extend the $600 benefit, unemployment benefit from the federal government. It's a hell of a lot of money. And with the $200 benefit, $247 from the state, people were making $847 a week. It's a lot of money. It's more money than many people were making. So some people were offered their jobs back and they're saying, no, they're not going back because they're making more money sitting at home. Aaron and Nola says, imbeciles lash out. Yes, and I think today proves there are imbeciles on both sides. So look, I have a strong work ethic. It's what I was taught by my dad. It's what I believe I taught my son. And I think it's wrong to be offered your job back and say, I'm making more money now, so I'm not going to work. First of all, there are people who challenge me on whether or not that even happens. It does happen. It is happening. And this is really, this whole issue is really divided along liberal and conservative lines based on ideology. Democrats want to extend it. That's more of a liberal point of view. Republicans say we can't keep giving people free money and we've got to cut this off. We can't encourage people to stay home. I agree with that. So my point is, if you're getting the money and you're offered your job back, I think you should take your job because the money's temporary and your job should be more permanent. There are going to be exceptions, of course. Some people are going to go back to their jobs and lose their jobs. Look, life sucks and life isn't fair. That happens. But my position on saying that, look, if you're offered your job back, you should take your job back because that helps the business that you work for. It helps the economy. And I realize it's hard to give up the unemployment money, which is more than you're making. But, you know, don't be happy with what you're making. Freaking go back to work and try and be a bigger success. I'll get to that in just a moment. First caller on the show today is really verbally mad at me. I mean, he is mad at me because he thinks, well, his interpretation of what I said was that they should cut out the $600. I didn't say that. And this particular guy, his wife has lupus, and he has to stay home with her. Well, first of all, thoughts and prayers with you and your wife. I appreciate you taking care of her. I know she does. It's got to be a tough situation. But come on. I didn't say this so it applies to you. This is not about you. And it also made me realize today that today people are taking things so personally. Everything doesn't apply to everybody. You know, if people say talk show hosts in general suck and they're irresponsible and they're shallow people, I don't take that personally because I don't think that's who I am. So I brush it off. So for this guy to think that I'm saying nobody should get the money, I mean, I'm for guys like this getting the $600 or getting as much as possible. And I think there's going to be some adjustment to the $600, but people are still going to get some money, get some help. But people cannot be paid to stay home. The sad part about that is people will stay home because work ethic in America ain't that great. And by the way, if you have a strong work ethic, don't bitch. I'm not talking about you. I also relate this to truck drivers. If I see a truck driver driving 75 miles an hour in the left lane, 18-wheeler, blazing down the highway, sometimes weaving back and forth from the middle lane to the left lane, and I say that is a dangerous truck driver, and that truck driver should not be doing 75 through Metairie and Kenner through a crowded suburban area. They should not be going that fast, and it's dangerous. I never said all truck drivers are dangerous, but that's the way people interpret it. Well, I'm a truck driver. Well, you can't say that about us. You can't say that. I didn't say that about you. And if you want to support a truck driver driving through crowded Metairie and Kenner, suburbs of New Orleans or suburban areas, 75 miles an hour in the left lane, going back and forth left lane, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I call it out on the show. If you want to support that, you can. But I'm not talking about all truck drivers. So don't take everything so personally. If something's talked about in the media and it doesn't apply to you, don't take it personally. And people are so territorial about their image or whatever it is that they do. They're so protective of if you're a conservative and you're wearing a mask, then don't take it personally. If I talk about how, in general, it's more conservatives than liberals who don't want to wear a mask. I don't make this up. So don't take it personally. I just, we're just so damn sensitive. And it makes talk radio very, very combative. And I'm trying to not be combative. I'm trying to, just kind of go along with it. Shatney says, people are getting too comfortable. Yes, people are comfortable with getting extra money from the government for doing nothing. Some people need it. Some people have turned down getting their jobs back. I said some people, not everybody. But there are people who get all up in arms. And it was amazing how many people today on my radio show just accused me of towing the Republican line, of being too conservative, of being just, typical Republican talking points, when I usually get the opposite. Because when it comes to a lot of issues, I'm not a liberal, but when it comes to a lot of issues, my views are liberal. But when it comes to some issues, my views are very conservative. I've told this story before. In fact, this was a really great part of my radio show today. I asked people to talk about their work ethic story. Tell me how your work ethic benefited you. Because there are a lot of people in this country that don't have a strong work ethic. There are people who come across the border and they want to work harder than people who are already across the border. That's one of the reasons. I said one of the reasons that sometimes jobs get taken from Americans. Sometimes they work for less. A lot of times they work for less. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. But who's hiring these people? Conservatives are hiring these people too. Conservatives are hiring people who hire illegals because they want the job done at the lowest possible price. So there's just a bunch of hypocrisy out there. But I have a strong work ethic, and I talked about, my first job, minimum wage job at a grocery store. I had the lowest job at this grocery store. Veterans Highway in Metairie. Lowest job. I was bagging groceries, breaking up boxes, putting boxes in the furnace outside. And man, in the heat of the summer, being near that furnace, it was brutal. I was racking bottles because bottles were refundable. So I was racking bottles. Had the lowest job ever. But I busted my ass. I worked really hard. I did everything that I was asked to do, and I did it the best I could do, and I did it as quickly as I could do it. Another grocery store offered me a job in produce. Produce. The mist of produce. The cool milieu of produce. Being around produce instead of being around the furnace, instead of being around those bottles, instead of bagging groceries, I would be in produce. Man, that was a cush job compared to the other things I was doing. So another store offered me the job. And I told my boss at the store I was working for. And said, wait a minute, no, we don't want you to leave. They gave me a raise and they made me a cashier. Why? Because I busted my little ass doing the dirty work. Because I wasn't satisfied where I was. And because I was offered another job, I got a raise. And it happened to me over the years in radio as well. Bust my ass, do well, get offered another job. In fact, I'm gonna save this story for Saturday night. I'll tell you how I started in radio, how I got an opportunity to be on WWL part-time at the age of what? I don't know, maybe 18, maybe 19. I might have been 18. I forced that to happen because I made a sacrifice and I busted my ass. And then I moved from music radio to talk radio because I busted my ass. And I proved that I was willing to work harder. So I'm going to save that for the story, The Truth Behind the Microphone, Scoot Story, Saturday night. And I hope sharing this with you motivates you. Aaron Nola Ray says, I joined the Army to provide for my 2 kids. Good for you, Aaron. Good for you. And I know you learned discipline. I've talked on the air, mentioned the story again on my radio show today. My dad, whether it was baseball or football, my dad and I are playing, pitch and catch. My dad made me catch 10 in a row before we could go inside. And I'd catch 5 in a row and drop the ball. We had to start over at 1. Then I get to 7, 3, drop the ball. We had to start over. Every time I dropped the ball, if we did not get to 10, we had to start over before we could go in. I would get to 8 or 9 and drop the ball. My dad made me start over. There were people who had called my radio show, not today, but in the past when I've mentioned this, and said, that's child abuse. Really? That's not child abuse. The idea of teaching a child to reach a goal is important. The idea of teaching a child that when you reach a goal, there's a reward. You go inside. It also taught me to deal with pressure because I'll tell you, once I got to 7 in a row, 8 in a row, and then I would get to 9 in a row, the pressure was on. I had to catch the next one. The pressure was on me as a kid. I had to catch the next one so we could go inside. And I finally did. That wasn't child abuse. That was teaching good work ethic. And my dad also taught us to do the best job we can do even when nobody's watching. There's a lot of slackers in the world. There are baby boomers who are slackers. Look, in my business, I've worked with slackers. I've worked with a lot of slackers. They're everywhere. In radio too. And it's so frustrating to me. Because everybody should try to do their best. Aaron says that's golden, Scoot. Yeah, it was a golden lesson. Another comment. Not enough. Learn to work to earn. Exactly. And so this is the conservative side of me. I'm for welfare reform. There's something inherently wrong with the system that rewards people for not working. We shouldn't have a system where people get paid more to not work. We shouldn't have a system that discourages fathers from coming forward and being involved in their kids' lives. The government has partially created this environment. And the concept of choosing having babies as a career choice is insane. Because for thinking people, that ain't enough money to really raise a child. It's not worth it. But it becomes worth it. So the government's partly at fault. I mean, a lot needs to change. But don't underestimate how lazy some people are. And not every millennial is lazy. Not every Gen Z, not every Zoomer, I call them Zoomers now. Not every Zoomer is lazy. Not every Gen Xer is lazy. And I know this for a fact. There's some really high achievers in all those generations too. But there are people who talk from firsthand experience about young people today. Many young people today, they want the money, but they don't want to work for it. Okay, so think about this. The government is paying you $600, the federal government, unemployment. The state government is paying you $847 a week for sitting home and doing nothing. It's more than a lot of people made in their jobs. And they chose to not go back to their jobs. Not everybody, but a lot of people didn't go back to work. That's discouraging. But that's reflective of America. Because too many Americans are lazy. Too many Americans have the idea of, I'm entitled to something. So if you're making more money on unemployment temporarily from the government, and you don't want to go back to your job, then why not have this thought? You know, I'm not happy with where I am in life, and I'm going to work harder to make more than I'm making now so I can have a better life. You know, when I got married the first time, I'm not proud of that, it was reality. But when I got married, I remember my wife and I would save up, and once in a while we could afford to buy a baked ham. And that was a big luxury for us. You think we were going to try and have kids then? No. If we would have, you know, felt blessed but we planned it. We waited until we felt like we had enough money and had experienced enough life to where we could have a family, because we got married at 21. So we were married 9 years before we had my son. And that was the right thing to do. Anyway, even if the minimum wage was raised to $15, who wants to live on $15 an hour? Who wants to raise a family on $15 an hour? What happened to trying to, you start at minimum wage. What happened to trying to get better, trying to make more money? Mrs. C says, my son is a speech therapist, quit on me because they were making more money with unemployment than they would have been making. Yenny says, work ethic is reflected in everything you do in life. Yes, it is everything you do in life. Think about all the people that admire Drew Brees and his work ethic, and yet they don't have work ethic. So why don't you try and emulate the guy you admire? And if you have kids, man, teach them work ethic. A guy called the show today, and he dropped the F-bomb, so I had to dump him. But if you listen on radio.com, you usually hear the profanity. There's not a lot of it, but every once in a while something slips out of somebody's mouth. In fact, this guy, calling from Metairie, this guy was he was enjoying the conversation with me. And it was so relaxed that he just let the F-bomb fly. And he was talking about Mr. John Schwegman, who owned Schwegman's Supermarkets. If you're a millennial, you don't even know anything about that. But this is a big grocery chain in New Orleans. And he said, Mr. Schwegman saw him in his minimum wage job at the grocery store, saw him step over a broom that had fallen. And Mr. Swigman said, "Don't you ever step over anything that's on the ground. You pick it up and do something with it." And the guy said that made an impression on him. And to this day, he remembers that. And to this day, that is something that speaks to him when it comes to work ethic. And he said, man, Mr. Swigman was one tough effer. I know I can say it on YouTube, but I don't need to. He was one tough effer. So I had to dump it. But again, I love that some people are so casual in talking to me. It's just like talking to a friend. And so they sometimes let those fly. Hey, I'll let you guys go. I enjoyed this Manic Monday with you, and just talking about some of the frustrations, and really the frustrations that I deal with. Many of you are dealing with the same frustrations in life. And today was just such a great example of how a strong work ethic is dying in America. And if we're not number one at everything, we have ourselves to blame. And if your state, if your city is not number one, you only have yourselves to blame. So join me on my radio show tomorrow afternoon, WWL, 870 AM, 105.3 FM. That's for New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, the Gulf South. And anywhere else in the country, just download the app radio.com, type in WWL, and I'm on the air 1 to 4 in the afternoon, New Orleans time. A lot of conservatives, a lot of liberals, a lot of independents listen to my show. So it's where pop culture and politics meet your opinions. And I would say most afternoons we're having a pretty good time. Sometimes we're having a lot of fun. Sometimes we're just talking about pop culture. But there's so much going on politically that we have to talk about that. And also, subscribe to my YouTube channel here, Scoot on the Air. I ordered some things this weekend. They're going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to build a little set. So I'm not going to be sitting here on my sofa in my apartment. We're going to have a little set for Scoot on the Air, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So that's in the process of being put together. And don't forget, it will benefit charity. 100% of the proceeds, Scoot on the Air mugs, going to charity. And you can order that on my website, which is Scoot on the Air. So join me next YouTube channel show will be Wednesday night, The Truth Behind the Microphone. And I'll talk a little bit more about just the media. I don't know what else we'll talk about, but we'll talk about other things. But I try to reveal some aspects of the media that I see from my perspective in this business, and I've been doing this a long time. And I try to share it with you because a lot of people have a great misunderstanding of the media and how the media operates. So I like to share that with you. That's why we call it The Truth Behind the Microphone. And then on Saturday night, I'll do another episode of The Truth Behind the Microphone, a Scoot story. And look, you can go back and look at the SOTA, Truth Behind the Microphone, Scoot stories. And I'm telling personal stories. I told the story about the stalker, this woman who was stalking me, who committed suicide because I wouldn't be with her. I talk about tough things that happened to me. I talked about a really interesting early introduction that I had into this business. So I talked about the midget wrestler that turned on me in the ring. It led to trauma of the larynx, and I was off the air for 3 days. And that was an interesting story. But all of that is here on my YouTube channel. All the videos are posted. So enjoy it. I'm Scoot. Thank you for being with me. Love you guys. Have a great night.